All right, we're live now, okay? So the YouTube link is live. You set in the mood, Barrington? You set in the scene?
Yeah, y'all gotta forgive me. I expecting some Christians over this evening too. So I gotta make sure everything is correct. Motherfuckers might want to pray this evening.
You got to be mentally prepared for that.
Yeah, I gotta make sure everything is everything. Actually, I about to take this shit outside right now and all so they get up the house. Yeah, so we live.
Yes, we're live. Let's give it another 2 minutes or so before we just pop off the conversation. Okay, sorry, my mic was muted. We're up to about 8 viewers now, so I think we should get started for the sake of time. Everybody out there, welcome to Hangouts, Bahamas Free Thinkers Hangout session number 2. If you remember, the first one was an introduction to the admins. This one, we've kind of taken a slightly different direction. We're getting right into it. Today's topic, which I think is a very timely one, considering the amount of things that's going on in the media and in our own country, and with the old and the young people, by the way, dominating a lot of the headlines too. What drives your sexuality, nature or society? To some of us, that may be the answer may be pretty easy. To some of us, maybe not, and some of us may be very fooled by thinking what actually drives our sexuality. So we're going to delve into that a bit. It's a very broad conversation. It's a very broad topic. So I'm sure we're going to come from a few different angles tonight. And we have a very lively panelist. Some of us may recognize a few of them, or maybe not. This may be the first time you're actually seeing and hearing some of them in person. But we have Kendra, who is an admin of Bahamas Free Thinkers, and we also have Leanne, who is one of our more vocal and provocative members, female members, not that that matters, right? And then we have Barrington, who is, I think, maybe just as crazy as Leanne. I think he might have an edge on her, though. I mean, he might have an edge up on Leanne, though. But again, three very vocal, very provocative panelists who I'm sure can provide some very good conversation. So Leanne, I'll just run through you guys real quick. Just introduce yourself, maybe say a few words, and we'll move on to the next panelist before we get into the topic matter.
I just want to say hello to everybody tonight, and thanks for joining us. I really appreciate Farrell putting this together, and Kendra and Barrington for participating as well.
Thank you. Barrington?
Oh, hi everyone. I am Barrington Mackey, Freethinkers Social Misfit, if you want to give it a title. thanks a lot, Pharrell, and for putting this together, and Kendra and Lee for taking part. And thank you guys for tuning in, and hope we have a good conversation this evening.
Thank you. Kendra?
Let me unmute my mic first. Yeah, it's really, I'm glad you guys could make it. It's really exciting to have two members join us tonight, and I'm looking forward to a lively discussion as well.
Thanks, Kendra. And I don't know how much of our viewers or even some of our panelists took part in the first Google Hangout, but I think Marlon, who was one of the founders of the group, he made it very clear that the purpose of this group was to create an environment where we can discuss openly and candidly and very spiritedly. You know, I don't think we ever shy away from confrontation in Bahamas Free Thinkers, as long as it's respectful. But the goal is to create an environment where we can take on and tackle some topics that are typically, you know, it can very easily get you judged or labeled or, you know, ridiculed in most arenas and forums, in particular in the Bahamas, you know, but in many countries, but in particular in the Bahamas. So I think the goal was to create that environment. I think we've been pretty successful at doing that. And so this is just another dimension to the types of debates and conversations we have in Bahamas Free Thinkers. And one of the goals was not just for drama or for debate, but it was also for education and sharing information and ideas to try to sculpt our thinking as individuals and as a community. And so I'm sure this conversation will follow that train as well. So again, the topic matter is what drives your sexuality, nature or society. So, you know, we're going to jump straight into it. And one angle that I think that, you know, we can start out the gate with is sexuality. In particular, before we delve into our personal sexualities, if that even comes up, but it's just sexuality in the Bahamas. I think it's a very, very unique one. We're an ultra Christian, ultra conservative society, but we are hypersexual. I don't think we can deny that. When you look at the statistics, the amount of teenage pregnancies we have, the amount of STD levels are high, the amount of infidelity. I mean, we are definitely juicing. But for whatever reason, we don't talk about it. We hold it in. It's a lot of sexual repression that's going on. It's almost like we have an aversion to the word sex in the public arena. But everybody's definitely jumping into it. Even we saw the headlines the other day. I think there was some maybe 4th or 5th grade students that were caught in a group sex situation. So again, we are definitely engaging in the act, but we're not talking about it. So Leanne, starting with you, why do you think that is?
Well, I think it goes back originally to the church. I think we don't like to point the finger at the church, but in this instance, we have to, because just about every one of us has been raised in some shape or form in the Christian church in this country. And yeah, we're ultra conservative, but it's lip service, really. And people go to church on Sunday, and the rest of the week they juicing. And in terms of costs and sexual repression, I think that's one of our biggest problems, and I think that's also why so many people are on the down low and are afraid to come out, because, you know, they're going to be shunned from their congregation or whatever.
All right, thank you, Leanne. Barrington, give it a shot. Why do you think we don't discuss sex enough in the public arena, and why we see some of the negative effects we see now in the Bahamas in particular?
I mean, in a single word, I would just call it ignorance. You know, it's really one of those ignorance from that's brought from being in such a religious society. You know what I mean? They try to teach us that sex is such a dirty thing, and It should be in a particular carried out in a particular way. But when you look at when the real human side of the issue comes out beyond the ignorance of the religion, you know what I mean? Yeah, passed up, they're telling us we should be living this decent life, but then in the end, he in the bag, they're choosing the choir director. You know what I mean? And not necessarily in my judgment, I wouldn't call it a bad thing because I just think sex is great, woohoo, but at the same time it's because of his ignorant approach to the whole issue of sex which causes it to look like a bad thing. You know what I mean? Sex is really all natural in my opinion, and so however whatever sexual feelings you may have within reason, I feel it really should be able to be expressed. But again, like I say, because of the whole religious ignorance that seems to dominate our society, sex has been viewed really in an unfair light.
Thanks, Barrington. Kendra, both, both Leanna and Barrington labeled, well, for the most part, they touched on religion being the root of being the root cause of this ignorance or us running away from or shying away from the conversation of sex. Is it, I mean, is it really religion? Is it still religion? I can understand maybe a few hundred years ago, but now in 2015, can we lay the burden squarely on religion?
I think some of it is sort of born out of not just religion, but when you think about how we procreate and how we live, some of it, if you think about it, I guess logically, people needed to be certain of lineages. So I think some of the customs that have been appropriated by religion actually had a logical purpose. Like if you wanted to know that, this was your kid, this was your woman, she could only sleep with you. So I think there's some things that were sort of co-opted by religion that in an age where you don't have DNA testing and all of this stuff, that probably did make sense at one point, but now we know more. We can free ourselves of these dogmas and these practices that just don't treat people fairly, don't treat men and women fairly as a whole. But now we're sort of moving into an age where we can sort of get rid of all of these extra trappings that we've attached to sex and to procreation and all of that. So I think that's sort of, religion is largely to blame now, but I do think it sort of had beginnings in, pre-religious cultures.
Thanks. Leanne, you want to add something?
I think that in the Bahamas, we have such an hypocrisy within the church because I was raised in the Brethren Church. And because of I can't even really put it into words, the total lockdown of any talk of sexuality in any way. I didn't even know I was gay. I did not know until I was in my mid-30s. And someone would say, how is that possible? Well, when you grow up in a society where every person you ever knew that is gay and out is totally ostracized and shunned, you hide that. You put it deep just to survive.
So that's an interesting perspective, Leon, because what you're saying is, so again, religion has been the root of it, but now it's almost the shaming of it, or the fear of ridicule that even allows persons who may be more progressive and maybe more free and open with themselves, but it shuts them down. Just the fear of that shuts them down. So by de facto, it's like that person also follows the trend of pushing up just being quiet about it and not really talking about it. That's an interesting
Well,
perspective.
not even so much hushing up about it, not even having self-awareness, not having self-awareness at all.
Right, and I think, if I can interject, I think that's sort of, the United States is an example of how society shapes your sexuality, because if we were all allowed to sort of just grow and explore and do what came naturally to us, we would probably act a lot differently than most of us do now. You wouldn't have that confusion, well, not confusion, come to, a major realization in your mid-30s if you didn't have all this, information, or people were telling you, well, no, you have to be like this. You can't be with girls, you have to be with boys. Like, if there was none of that, then we'd probably see a lot people expressing their sexuality in many more ways than we see today. And so, it sort of goes back to our question, is it nature or society? And it's really a mixture of both. There are your innate feelings and desires and everything that I guess you would be if we weren't so heavily molded in a particular society.
Well, I want to call it brainwashed, is what I want to call it. It's not molded.
Yeah.
It's not molded. It's beat down. It's not, and it's not even, that wasn't even a part of the conversation, that it's not okay to like girls. There wasn't even a conversation. It was just always, preaching from the Bible about, a woman should be subject to her husband and pure for marriage and all of that. So the whole concept of being gay, that never even came up. That wasn't
Yeah,
even in the realm of discussion.
I think another factor of the whole ignorance is really fear and suppression. Is like parents just in a sense being afraid of their daughters getting pregnant or their sons doing certain things, or even with finding out their kids are homosexuality, is that fear caused them to take an approach to where they taught us that in a lot of instances sex was a dirty thing. Growing up, I knew where babies came from, but I could never imagine my parents actually having sex.
Yes.
Because of the perception that was fed not only from the church but from society in general, that's fed to young people that sex is a dirty thing, sex is a bad thing. And so in many cases, that's where you get to see really where this one-sided ignorant teaching really caused sex to more or less become a dirty thing. you know um and an example of that, I don't want to seem like I'm attacking the church, but fuck it. um, when you look at a lot of the controversies that the Catholic Church is known for, even to where now this present Pope is admitting that of a lot of sexual misconducts about going along with Catholic priests. That really, in my opinion, comes from these priests trying to suppress their normal human sexual feelings to a point where now it's so suppressed that when it comes out, it comes out well, we have a cliche, pressure boys pipe. So you have these sexual feelings building up in you and building up in you, and because of your religion, you don't want to explore these sexual feelings, so you end up bongy and a little boy. You know what I mean? Because now this is the only or the most convenient sexual release allowed to you, and in a sense, these young boys who are being raped are really the only people who these priests are having any intimate interaction with. And so when this natural human instinct finally comes out and it can't be suppressed anymore, it comes out in the wrong way. And so and a lot of I've read studies where people say that this is a cause of rape and a lot of other social ills, and that's really because, of how we were taught that our sexuality should be suppressed.
All right. Well, Barrington,
Let's,
let me take it. Oh, go ahead, Kendra. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's not just rampant in the Catholic Church. I think any organization that sets people up to be in a position of great authority over others, where you're really asked to be submissive, people are supposed to be submissive to you, is a situation where you're going to get predators. And also people, like you say, who don't explore their sexuality, and what I think isn't as talked about as much as pedophilia, are the cases where Catholic priests wind up leaving the church because they have relationships, consensual relationships, with other adults, either male or female. And that's also a problem because, think of children born out of wedlock, or just sort of relationships destroyed because you've taken vows and you want to hold true to those vows, and here you are having an illicit or a relationship that's not allowed, and the stress and the trauma that goes along with that. So it's, there's the pedophilia and the illegal acts that go with that, but there are also, people who have genuinely normal consensual relationships, and they don't get to have them, or they wind up having to leave something that is important to them to sort of fulfill those desires. And I think that's sort of also, at least if you look at the Catholic Church, it's very male dominated. A part of that control is that, women, we're not allowed to enjoy our sexuality or to express it. And so that's just sort of one more way that religion sort of boxes you in. And if you, I guess, imagine a world where women were sort of expected to be as sexual and horny as men are, because despite our conservatism as a country in the Bahamas, we accept a lot of crap. Like, men can have as many outside children as they want in outside affairs, and that's a-okay. But heaven forbid a woman have an orgasm, the heavens will shatter. So
just to interject real quick, Andrew, I just saw a meme on Facebook, and it said I think it was like a picture of Richard Pryor, and he was like, a man can have a side chick, but if women talked about she has a side dude, oh, she's a hoe, she's this, she's that. So just kind of build on what you're saying, it's the same thing. It appears that males have been given preference, and I mean, we know why, because males, they wrote the doctrine, they crafted everything, so it is male dominant and male leaning. But I think we've kind of encapsulated great the reasons why we are driven by society. But how do we? What do you think society would be if nature drove our sexuality? What would a society like the Bahamas look like if we were more free to express ourselves, if we were more free to explore ourselves and share that amongst each other? At relatively a young age, so we kind of find out we're not searching blindly through the wilderness. I mean, what would that society look like? Barrington, I'm going to throw it at you first.
You're gonna come to me first. Wow. I was trying to swallow all of that stuff. Did you get back to me on that? No,
you want me to jump in?
Yeah, please.
Oh, I think that a society that where people could be more open would be one that's much more socialist. I think if we took better care of each other, and everybody was sort of taking care of it, and we wouldn't have these hang-ups that sort of come with the trappings of patriarchy and religion. I think that sort of that's the direction we would be in. But we wouldn't just be more sexually open, we would be more open in all aspects of our lives, because if people are taken care of and you don't have to worry about, how my bills are going to be paid or how my child support is going to be paid or any of this stuff. You don't cling to relationships that aren't working, or you don't cling to behaviors that aren't working for you or anybody else. So that's, I mean, that's where I think we would be not just more sexually free, but more equal across the board.
That's interesting. So our sexual liberation could eventually equate to equality across the board. I wouldn't have correlated those two.
Well,
I guess I almost looked at it separately. Go ahead, Barrington.
well, I kind of get where Kendra is coming from, and I fully agree. You know, and it in a lot of cases it boils down to really exposure. Once you're sort of exposed to women, you're more open to women really, and you get to understand really that women are human too, and so yeah, the same urges that men feel more or less women feel. And so I think generally we're, as a society, we're moving away from this whole perception or opinion that women having more than one person in their life or one mate in their life is taboo, and it's even moving to where more men are being seen as hoes and sluts, because now um, it's not really the great focus is not really now on monogamy. The focus is more or less how you go about being promiscuous. You know, a married woman could very well be seeing out. And this is from my experience. So a married woman could very well be seeing out with another woman now, with another man besides her husband. And in some cases, we'd understand it to say, well, oh, that's just how she is. That's just her high sexual drive. But at the same time, her husband is at home happy. And so who really gives a fuck? He's home happy, even though she's out there doing her thing. Maybe he knows what she's doing. Maybe he doesn't know what she's doing. But as long as the union itself seems happy, um, it really doesn't matter, because in a lot of cases that's what used to happen with men. They go out and they take care of their homes and all the rest of these things, and they have 3 or 4 sweethearts. But at the same time, every time you see their wife happy and she has her head held high, being Mrs. whoever Mrs. she is, because either she's ignorant to the fact that her husband is out there um, sleeping with other women, or she's just okay with him doing what he's doing as long as he doesn't do it in a certain way. So
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that the absolute monogamy, that framework, or that structured relationship is definitely seeing it as being tested as of late. But Leanne, so again, I want to throw the original question to you as well. Like, what would a free society look like if we were able to express ourselves without fear?
Well, I wanted to take off a bit on what Chandra said. Um, and basically, the word that she threw out there was that our society would be more socialistic, and it would be more caring. We wouldn't have all these cracks at the bottom of society where people fall through, and you have teen pregnancy and no one's caring about the children. They don't get a proper education. We could go on all night about that. But what just popped into my head as she was describing her vision of what our society might be like is Denmark. I've made many trips to Denmark, and let me tell you, that place has got it figured out. They don't judge you if you're gay or straight, or a woman or a man, or white or black. They see everyone as human. They have a wonderful safety net built into their society. Granted, they pay a lot of taxes, but they get something for what they pay. They actually get something. and the place is almost a little model country for the rest of the world to look at and say, hey, why can't we do something at least half as good as what they're doing?
Yeah.
And I've said this before to officials in different capacities when I've had the chance to speak with different ministers one-on-one. Why don't we send some consultants over there to Denmark and get some good ideas and bring them home and implement them? I mean, they got the solar power and the wind power figured out. They feed themselves, and they're not even in the tropics. They're in a freaking cold part of the world, and they can still feed themselves.
And
It's just so
their
many things that I could
education
go
is
on.
off the chain.
Off the chains, free university, free everything, free childcare. But anyway, that was I wanted to add to what Chandra said about our society being more socialistic and more free. It and a lot of them do say that they're Christian and they do go to church, but you know what? They actually don't judge.
I think the comments or responses to that, Leanne, would be that Denmark and a few of those that region, the Norwegian countries, I think they've gone through probably a few centuries ahead of us in regards to in terms of development and the social structure. They've gone through their very, very Christian and religious transition already, and so it's like we're a few ticks behind them. So
I don't know. I don't know about that.
Any ticks?
No. I mean, let's go back in their history. They were the Vikings. They were raping and pillaging and going off to Nova Scotia in the 12th century. But nobody talks about that because we always talk about Columbus coming to the Bahamas first.
I think one of the differences that in Europe, they had some really brutal wars born out of religion, and we haven't really had that. It's the same in the U.S. Like Christianity is sort of the default, and there hasn't been that struggle. Now, if Muslims in this country were to sort of wage a brutal war, in the aftermath, people might say, you know what, maybe we should take a step back on this religion thing. But I think because we haven't had the struggle with opposing theologies, that we cling to it more because we still see it as something very good and not as something that can be a source of divisiveness, or significant divisiveness, because we know that there is some infighting, but not to the point where you see it in even today in other countries where people are actually killing each other. And I think that's sort of what's keeping us, and we sort of need a revolution to help us break out of this to break out of religion. To break out of this rut. And I don't know how it's gonna happen, but I do think geographically that we're gonna, because the U.S. is sort of forging ahead, we're gonna have to shift a little to the left, because if tourism is your main industry, you can't say this foolishness that we have where people want to not cater to gay cruise ships and all of that. Like you're not going to have a choice if you want to continue to make money and be profitable. And I think with that increased exposure and that increased acceptance, people are slowly going to be like, well, it's not such a big deal. And hopefully, although maybe this is a little too optimistic on my part, hopefully it doesn't take us as long to have that conversation, in terms of acceptance of gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and queer people, because it's happening all around us, and the reality is that these people exist. They're people just like us, and we're going to have to come to terms with that quickly, if we want to. If we just want to, yeah.
Well, that's the reality, but I'll tell you honestly, Chandra, in 3 years of being on Facebook and being out and open and vocal, I've been told more times than I can count that I'm of the devil and I'm an abomination and I'm going to burn in hell. And I could even take it, down into the gutter further, but I won't. I've been threatened with rape, with just need some good Bahamian, to sort me out. Um, so I don't agree. I don't think the average Bahamian at this point is ready for equality.
Do you
Over
think
30.
an age thing, like people, let's say people of my parents' generation, not so much, but maybe people of my generation and younger people, especially if you go off to, you go away to college and you're put in these societies and cultures, where it is becoming more of the norm. Do you think as more and more people sort of bring that attitude back to the Bahamas that things might change? Like it might happen a little bit faster because of that?
Well, Kendra, Leon, before you respond to something, I just want to, I have to address with you all before we move on is one of the largest criticisms that you're going to get from, a Christian or conservative society. Once you start talking about being able to express yourself sexually and having the leeway and the space to explore that as young adolescents, one of the largest, or it's going to be where does it end? Okay, so what does exploring yourself mean? Little boys can explore little boys, little girls can explore little girls. What if a woman wants to explore a grown man wants to explore a little boy? Where does it, as far as they're concerned, once you start to talk about freedom of expression and exploration, the floodgates, as far as they're concerned, the floodgates and all manner of hell and demon. Can you respond to that?
I mean, to me,
That's wrong.
that's just the height of stupidity. Sorry, Leon. But everything has to be done within reason. You know what I mean? Zion, give me the next Guinness, please. Yeah, like I'm saying, everything has to be done within reason. Even from a heterosexual point of view in the freezer, um, I mean, not every beautiful woman you see you're gonna take advantage of. Some people have certain opinions about female dominance and rape. Would that ever be acceptable? No. The same thing, some people have some materialistic views where they feel like they should get everything they want. But does that mean if Kendra has something that I like, I should be free to take it? So everything has to be done within reason. Now, so as far as Leanne wanting to be a lesbian, well, that's free for her to do as long as whoever she explores those feelings with is another consenting adult. And so if a consenting adult wants to do something with another consenting adult, I mean, even sometimes in some heterosexual circles, some things happen that more conservative people might feel are a bit stretching it. Now you have beyond these things, you have swingers coming out where people trade mates for the night, and you have menage a trois and orgy parties and all of these things. There, people are becoming more bold with these things. But as long as these are consenting adults doing these things, mind you, I come from that whole boom bye bye society when Buju come out. I used to be up there in the dance, pop pop, yeah, shoot down the Batty Boy and all the rest of these things. But now we get past that point of where we're being judgmental towards adults, but like I said, it has to be done within reason, where the same way children have to know their place, adults have to know how far to go with children, and there is nothing synonymous with children and sex. I'm sorry, there's no way you can convince me. You know,
I think,
these things should happen.
Kendra,
I think when it comes to children, and you sort of brought up children being allowed to explore with each other. That's fine. To me, that's normal and natural. Children are curious. They should be free to explore their own bodies, especially before, they give license for somebody else to explore their own bodies. And children do it. I don't have kids, but I have friends who, talk about their kids when they reach a certain age. They masturbate, and they don't have the associations that we have with it because they haven't, experienced those emotions yet, but they know that touching themselves in certain places makes them feel good. So it's not unusual, and I think when we sort of tell children to not do it because it's bad, that you scar them because they're like, well, it's my body. Why shouldn't I be allowed to make my body feel good? So I think we should sort of be very aware of the lessons we teach children and how they treat their bodies, and make it clear that it's theirs to do with as they please, and when we talk about there's a disconnect, I guess, between when humans become sexually mature versus becoming emotionally mature, I guess, to deal with sex, and that's not uncommon in the animal world. Like dolphins, for instance. The first pregnancy and the first offspring is pretty much a write-off. It's a practice. The survival rate for dolphins' first offspring is shockingly low. So I think in terms of evolution, sort of your body becoming mature enough to have sex and to procreate before your mind doesn't necessarily say that it's okay to have a baby at that age. It's just you sort of, I guess it's your body practicing for that process, because it is a very traumatic process for females. And I think a lot of people sort of take that as a sign that, oh, if you're 11 and you have your period, you could, pop a baby out, but your hips might still not have fully developed. You're still not, you haven't reached complete sexual maturity just because you started menstruating. So I think, it's a very complex interaction between how we've evolved and how we interact in the societies that we've created.
I know it's very
back to what you were saying, Farrell.
Well, Leanne, I want you to address something for me real quick. It's a spin off from what Kendra was saying. She touched on the natural, the nature of things. We were born to procreate. Ultimately, that was that we were born to procreate by design. So if you popped out a baby at 12 and you died during childbirth, well, you lived out your purpose. But obviously, society from that now, and our goal for now as a race and as a species. But it's still, Leanne, the question still is, when you open up those floodgates, there's still the fear that woman or not. That is the way. No other combination can procreate. So once you open up the floodgates, you're moving so far away from how we were naturally designed or naturally supposed to be, and that is going to be one of the greatest fears. Like one of the pushbacks from not even much of the world, really. Leon, that's for you.
You broke up on that, Farrell. I couldn't hear your question. Sorry. Can you state the question briefly?
Oh yeah, real quick. Yeah, I was just saying that we were designed to be woman and man, so we can procreate. So once you start mixing that up a bit, we're moving away from what nature intended, and that's not going to be seen as a good thing.
With 7 billion people on the planet, I really don't think we have to worry about the human race diminishing because a small percentage of the entire world's population may not have children. Then again, LGBT people can still have children. And in fact, there's new research that within 2 years, gay couples will be able to have their own children with skin stem cells. So, if someone wants to say, well, that's not natural, 25 years ago there was the huge debate about in vitro and people who were infertile and they were mixing things up in a dish and that's not natural. But hey, now people don't even blink an eye at it.
Liana, sorry, Kendra Farrington.
Yeah, so when we talk about
from the natural standpoint.
Well,
sorry, what?
as far as I myself call myself a sexual deviant. I'm far removed away from the regular most of the sexual judgments. But in a lot of things, I'm still very conservative in what I want and what I want to see. But that should not really affect what the other person want to do. As a father, I want to see my son come home with a young lady, even if it's a junglist. I want him to have sex with somebody and make a baby and come home one day and say, well, daddy, I make this. But in the same token, we have to look at it in a lot of ways. I just had this debate with one of my female friends the other day, and when I said that, she got all emotional, how Christians go, and she was like, well, suppose she can't have a baby because of sexual reasons, because of natural reasons, like maybe she was born with a birth defect, or maybe even some traumatic incident happened in her life. She might have been raped at a very young age and had to have her reproductive organs removed. Does that mean she should not be able to find a mate or have a child? No. So in the same token, I feel like it's the same thing with homosexuals. The overriding question should be, are these people capable of raising a well-rounded child and showing this child some love and bringing them up in a decent way, instead of us continuing to go to this fear-mongering about, you're gonna destroy the whole world, and if homosexuality expands, then humans are going to become extinct and all of these things. I think we need to approach it from a more holistic approach. Like I said, I want certain things from my son. And so if I tell my son some bullshit story about the human race going extinct, and then he comes to a point of understanding and intelligence where he figures out that, hey, daddy was telling me some dumb shit, then he may just decide to go and explore the whole homosexual part of life, simply because he realized that daddy was feeding him some dumb shit, instead of daddy just coming to him and saying to him, well, hey, if you become a homosexual, yeah, I might not like that. It's not ideally what I want, but this is the reason why I want what I want, instead of trying to make him feel like, hey, you're wrong for exploring what you would want to do. I mean, if that makes any sense. Some people want their kids to be doctors, but their kids go into other industries and be just as successful or even more successful than doctors. So, in that same analogy, I would say, we just need to stop the fear mongering and telling our kids these out of whack bullshit stories.
Yeah, is it possible for us to actually, I think Leanne is not psychologically ready for that as a society. Is it possible allow for sexual freedom and exploration without having a good educational background and understanding of nature, biology, of how everything works? Is that a prerequisite to maybe being a bit more sexually, Kendra?
I think understanding sexuality from a biological or genetic perspective is going to help us, because we're going to realize that it's natural. Like, it's in it, what we express, I guess, is sort of written into our genetic code, and therefore, there's no reason to not see it as a normal, as a part of the spectrum of human sexuality. And I think I was reading, and if I can find the article, we can post it later, but reading an article that, a research article suggested that there are genes that, or some genes that make women more fertile when passed down to male members of that family, are implicated in homosexuality. So, it's as simple as something, in one sex having one function and in another sex sort of doing different things. And so, when you think about the population, so if these women, carry these genes, they're going to be more fertile. They're going to have more children. So this family group is going to expand. You're not going to have a detrimental effect on the population. So I think as we learn more about all these different aspects of sexuality, and it's very complicated. It's not. I think it's also not just hardwired, because some of it does happen in utero. As we sort of figure this out, we're going to realize like it's just a really complicated series of events that lead a person to express whatever sexuality, to express their sexuality. So there's no one thing that's going to make somebody gay, or one thing that's going to make somebody straight, or especially I guess when you think about transgender people, there's no one thing that makes this person that way. And I think that will help people. Well, I hope it will help people accept it more, because, or just understand that you don't need to fix anything,
Barrington, I think, sorry for that, Barrington. I think Leanne may have to leave soon, so I just wanted to respond to that as well.
Well,
Go ahead.
I think we still have to go back to what is taught in the churches, or in an overarching sense in the country, and that being gay is an abomination. And unless someone has been fortunate enough to go away and get an education, a higher level education, tertiary education, and have been fortunate to have exposure to other countries and other cultures, the average person here in the Bahamas are going to default back to the church every time. I mean, I've proven it over and over. I go in to blame them on a thread, and someone sees my rainbow flag, and I'm just making a comment on a thread. I'm not talking about anything LGBT, and the next thing you know, I'm being told I'm going to burn in hell. And that happens over and over and over again. It doesn't happen in Bahamas Free Thinkers as much, once or twice, but my point is, unless the person is educated about it, they're going to have in their minds and in their hearts what they learn from the pulpit.
Do you think that, because from what I see from here, I guess, is that the LGBT community at home is becoming more visible and more vocal. Do you see that helping any, or are we still is that not enough to sort of shake things up at home? I mean, I can't think of a single, like, gay celebrity or famous, like, public figure at home that people respect.
Well, no, I mean,
openly gay.
That's the crux of the matter right there. If everyone that was in the closet came out tomorrow, it would be a shocker in this place. Mm-hmm. That would change things, because until someone knows a gay person personally, until they say, "Oh my God, that's my uncle," or "That's my aunt," or my sister's gay, but I love her. She's a good person," and they have this disconnect, and then suddenly they're like, "Whoa, maybe could she really be an abomination?" No. Until people get courageous and come out, nothing's gonna change.
That is so, I mean, I agree with that so much, Leanne. And, that just comes back to another personal experience I had really with what got me away from the whole anti-gay sentiment and gays are just nasty and promiscuous and these things because I have a friend who has been my friend since high school, and I was away for a while and I came back home and hanging out with this friend and people coming to me and they telling me, boy, this guy he gay, what you doing hanging with this sissy? You know what I mean? What you doing moving around with this boy, say he doing these things and and I there not knowing what's going on, I'm telling no, boy, that nigga is sissy and around, but he's straight and this and that until one day I went to him and I was like, my, but everybody telling me you sissy. And so he looks at me and yeah, I gay. And it just opened my eyes to say, well, hey, if this person is gay and he's still this person, then maybe, because I mean, this dude, this one of them masculine type people, yeah, he gay, but you say the wrong thing, them in the bar, he knock you out just as quick as anybody else. This my dog, this my positive backup. So, it sort of started to open my eyes up to the how ignorant I personally was being to say, well, hey, these sissy niggas around here doing a bunch of, you know what I mean? Right now, he's as my personal friend, he's one of my most trusted friends. Mind you, I'm not I'm straight heterosexual, and I say I feel how I feel about my sexuality, but it caused me to realize how little or how his sexuality really had nothing to do with my sexuality. And until we come to that, I mean, I heard Kenya's eloquent explanation of the whole biological influences of us understanding why the driving of our sexuality. But I believe, we have to understand, and that's what causes a lot of the problems in our society too, and that's what really makes the church influence so powerful. We tend to complicate a lot of things to say, there's this scientific explanation that mostly John Public has to. Oh, you have a son, Leon. Brilliant. You want to say something? I could stop for you to say bye. Sorry.
Yeah, I gotta go. I'm sorry. School tomorrow, and it's time to get him ready for bed. And that's my time, guys. Peace.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you so much, Leanne.
Don't put no gin in this bottle now. Yeah, well, like I was saying.
It's funny, just to piggyback off with Barrington and Leanne said, I think the reality is most of us actually, we have a homosexuality or homosexual or a gay person in our family or in our friends or amongst our
And
workplace.
some
There's
of
a
us,
great deal of hypocrisy
all of
really.
us are not as straight as we think.
Exactly, exactly. Some of us ourselves may have some tendencies that we're suppressing, but we're so quick to judge and we're so quick to turn a blind eye to our gay person, but anybody else, oh boy, they're brimstone and fire, they're going to hell, they're an abomination. So it is a very, very tricky kind of dichotomy that we have going on here. But persons coming out, more homosexual, or persons in the LGBT community coming out and speaking out. But I honestly, I don't even think is that really the right approach that we should take in the Bahamas? I almost feel like while and it seems noble, I almost think that this should be done through education. Like this should be more of a, like I asked before, time evolution and time understanding our bodies and the way they work. Maybe more I just don't know. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think we need the outspoken activists coming out and they're going to be the ones to change the tide?
Um,
Definitely. I think normalizing it has been key. So when you have, when we have somebody running as member of parliament for Montague or whatever, and you know, he isn't married and he is openly gay, and he's a respectable, everything else in his life seems perfectly normal, and perhaps he's a law-abiding citizen, and like a lot of our politicians, then people will be like, oh, hey, this is a good person. It might take, that person probably won't win, but if we keep seeing, just normal people who happen to be gay, putting themselves forward in these things and just living their lives um, out and proud, I think, at some point people are going to, and not even just, I really think that younger people are going to be the key. And and I think given the state of affairs in our country, it's probably, the climate is probably right, because we want change and we want the best people available to be on the job. And if the best person available happens to be gay, people might be open to that, because we're in such a shitty situation now by maintaining the status quo that, I mean, we're almost at the point where you can't get worse, whatever that may be. But I sort of equate it to being an atheist. Like, people, the more you normalize it and the more you're just like, yeah, I don't believe in God, and people realize you're a good person, still, that it just makes them stop and think about their perception, and we calculate what they think about non-believers, and the same is true for any person who's not, cisgendered and heterosexual.
yeah, and what we need to do is just, you know, it's healthy to compare many things, and it's really, we need to keep it simple, because like Kendra said, it's gonna take the next generation. So we have to realize we're dealing with younger kids, and we're not dealing with the extremely educated people who may be able to understand the whole biology or the other psychology of these complex matters behind it. But if you make them understand, like I said, people who are against things traditionally in the Bahamas use fear mongering to try and get their point across. So they would say, oh, if homosexuals become more emboldened now and they become more acceptable, they would be messing with little boys and they would be raping kids. But and then you just turn around and you show them, well, hey, heterosexual men rape little girls, you know, and you just try to show them where maybe if people um, are more accepting of where these all of these traits really where your sexuality really has nothing to do with your own your moral instincts, more or less. That sexuality isn't really a moral situation, but it's more of a just a personal choice, and we need to just keep the message simple for our kids themselves, and so that this next generation coming up would be able to see where this isn't really as bad as the generations before us made it seem. We need to get past the bullshit.
Barrington and Kendra, just we're going to field a few questions we got from the audience. Barrington, you could probably respond to this one pretty nicely because you just actually referenced a personal story. The question is, what type on an individual who is courageous enough to publicly a gay friend. I think you actually just recently went through that, Barrington. I think Kendra asked you, what was the fallout? Was the consequences? Were you ridiculed?
Yeah, well,
Were you
there
yourself?
were fallouts, and there still are fallouts. But like I say, we need to be able to express and to show people beyond the ignorance of the whole fear mongering. Yeah, I mean, there's been people who saw me hanging out with my friend and who decided, hey, um, Barrington hanging out with this fella, he must be sissying around too. You know what I mean? And people coming back to me, oh, you need to stop hanging out with that fella because people saying you gay now and you doing these things. And but not only the gay community but also the heterosexual community needs to be bold enough to show where um where we are accepting enough of these people to look past the ignorance of general society and be able to accept these people. And then in us doing that, then that would allow the gay people and those people to feel more comfortable coming out and expressing their sexuality. And really in the end they then become more productive and more helpful parts of our society in general, because a person is, I mean, it's sort of a cliche question, but if you go to the doctor, if you go to the hospital having an emergency and an obviously gay person or a flamboyant gay person comes up to you and asks you what's wrong with you, are you gonna ask him if he's gay or straight? No, you're gonna tell him your problem. You let him fix you. You see what I'm saying? And we need to express um, those ignorances that we've been taught um, on a simple level, to where even the ignorant among us are able to understand and relate to what we're saying and what we try and express and show to them. I mean, I'm sure some people don't want to mess with me anymore because they see me riding around in my boy car. But at the same time, if I have a flat tire and I call him, I sure he coming. You see what I'm saying? If I stuck somewhere and I say, boy, look here, I need some backup. I need you to come check me. Some of my heterosexual people who might not be real friends might come out and say to me, man, look here, I doing something, or they might come up with a lie where I'm more confident in him coming. So why should his sexuality
Barrington,
affect?
I think Leanne wants to respond to something you said in your answer. Leanne. And then welcome back, Leanne. Thank you for rejoining us.
Yeah, sorry, I had to dash out for a minute and get my son sorted out. Um, I just wanted to respond to something that Barrington said about persons choosing their sexual orientation. This is not a choice. This is not something that I just woke up one day and said, "Oh well, I've been straight for 38 years. I'll try to be a lesbian now." It wasn't like that at all. Um, I was born this way, 100%. But because of what I heard and overheard as a very small child, I shoved this down. I locked it away behind the castle door. Because what I internalized as a very small child was that if you're gay, you're not going to be loved. Because that is so far beyond the realm of, quote, normal, that, you know what, you better stuff that down. You better stuff it down deep. So I just wanted to say, because it comes across many, many times to me in various threads with people that I have just met, that they think that being gay is a choice. And it's not a choice. It is not a choice. I will argue him down till I'm blue in the face. Why would someone choose a life where they're persecuted, vilified, ostracized, their children are bullied, or they were bullied themselves as a teen. No one chooses that. Everybody wants to fit in. That is human nature. But I just wanted to say on the record that I don't think it's a choice. That's my own personal opinion because I think I was born this way.
Barrington, I don't know if Barrington actually meant that it was a personal choice when he said that. I think he was just talking about it's my business. It
Well,
doesn't
I just
seem to be
wanted to make sure, and I'm not sure if that's what he meant, but I just
no.
wanted to clarify for people that are viewing or listening
Yeah,
that
well, sorry. I meant to say that when a person chooses to openly express themselves as, gay or lesbian, I've had this discussion. I have a gay friend now who has introduced me to other gay friends, and so I sometimes get caught up in these types of discussions, and for myself, I want to get a better understanding of really what brings a person, because I don't have these feelings, and so someone who have these feelings needs to express themselves to me in order for me to understand really what's going on. And I get where you're coming from, Leanne, but I said it wrong in saying, but it's when a person chooses to openly express themselves and to allow other people to know what's going on. And I be and like I say, there are a lot of people in the heterosexual community that, we have this thing about gay people being overly flamboyant, and it just doesn't look good. But you have some people in the heterosexual community who does some things that just turns my stomach when you see a fella and he's just going all out and he wants to have a woman on every corner, and he wants to, some of these things are just as repulsive to me as seeing a flamboyant gay person in the homosexual community. Mind you, there are some things that gays and lesbians do that I necessarily don't agree with, or I wouldn't choose to do myself. But you know, um, my opinion is my opinion. I just try to keep my opinion from becoming judgmental. You know. It's not good for me. Maybe it's good for them. I get off all you want, really.
Kendra, just real quickly, Anna, one of the questions was what burden is put on the individual who accepts a gay friend or a gay associate, in our environment. Kendra, would you, if you're in the Bahamas, would you openly associate with a gay guy or gay female with, not much stress or worry?
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think I have any openly gay friends at home, but I would have no problem with it. It doesn't matter to me. Although I guess I have the benefit of not having to stay in the Bahamas. Well, the benefit, but you know what I mean. But yeah, I would have no problem with it. I don't see it as it's not something I think about within my circle of friends. You know.
Okay, there's another question that I want everybody to kind of respond to quickly. It's a pretty interesting one. And it relates to when you talk about the freedom of expression sexually, age will always be a controversial issue. How old, how young is that detrimental? So the question is introducing like a female or male to masturbation and exploring themselves at a very young age, could that then later on lead to very early sexual activity that may not necessarily be welcome?
I
Uh,
think
Bar-
I think that's a very personal type answer to that question. If we go back in time, like I said, our society has become too judgmental. Um, if we go back, for instance, my grandmother, married my grandfather when she was 14 and he was 16. The age really wasn't the determining factor behind them whether they got married or not. It was their level of maturity and their level of readiness. In a lot of cases now in our society, I wouldn't want to see a 14 or 13-year-old young lady having sex because of so many other shortfalls that are already in her life where she don't know, she hasn't been taught how to take care of herself yet, or to know her own personality, her own sexuality yet, in order to be able to explore any sexual exploits. When you talk about sexuality, not really from a religious standpoint, but generally, being sexual with a person is really a personal and a really spiritual type exchange with that person. And so, if you're not mature enough or grounded enough to be able to know yourself and be able to really control your own emotions, that leaves you really open to being exploited and to be taken advantage of, whether you be male or female. And so, I really don't think it's so much a matter of age, but of preparation and maturity and exposure, which really should determine when a person starts to become sexually active. Because I mean, you even see it in our society with men sometimes, where you see big grown men and they are being taken advantage of by women, because the ignorant answer would be, oh, she just have that wicked wine in bed. But the real truth behind it is that young man really, even though he might be of an adult age, he hasn't been matured enough to be able um, to express himself properly, or to protect his own interests in a sexual situation.
Thanks, Barrington.
So
Leanne. Oh, sorry, Kendra. Go ahead, Kendra.
when it when it comes to, I think because we are such curious beings, in reality, children are probably exploring their bodies long before their parents ever think they should be exploring their bodies. Like, that's just fact. I was masturbating long before I really even knew what I was doing. So I don't think it's something that has to be introduced per se, because chances are, your kids are doing it. I think if that what people should be doing is having, honest conversations, healthy conversations with their kids about their bodies and about sex, or at least letting their children know that, hey, if you have a question, come to me, I'll try and answer it, and if I don't know the answer, I'll help you figure it out. And I think that's probably more important than anything, just keeping open dialogue. But most people, I mean, you have to bathe yourself, you have to dress yourself. Chances are you're gonna rub something and be like, oh, that feels good. So you rub it again, that feels even better. Like, that's just the way the way the mind works. Like, sharing a whole lot. So I don't think doing that at an early age, or being aware of that at an early age, is automatically going to make you more promiscuous, or is going to make you want to have somebody else do that to you. Because that's adding another level of complexity, right? You know what makes you feel good, but now this person who has their own emotions and also wants to get off, are they going to be in tune to make you feel good and make themselves feel good? Like, it just doesn't work that way. So one does not necessarily follow the other. So I don't think people should freak out if their kids are exploring. Encourage it. I think most because it encourages them to be comfortable with themselves. And I think that is so important for everybody to be just be comfortable with your body. It's fucking yours. Like, know it.
Leanne, you want to share some light on
Well,
that?
what I understood the question was, someone wanted to know, should they introduce their child to sexuality and masturbation? Is that the question?
I don't think it was necessarily masturbation per se, but it's just allowing them to have the freedom to explore and express themselves, their
Well,
sexuality at a young age.
I think that you need to have a conversation with children from a very young age and let them know that they can always talk to you as a parent. But I don't think you should tell them about masturbation. I mean, I didn't tell my son about that. I told him about human sexuality. I figured he'd figure that part out for himself. I mean, come on. Uh, but I think that you need to give them the facts. Don't miseducate them. Give them the truth from a very young age. I've been very open with him from probably about the age of 6 or 7, and we continue to have very open conversations. But no, we have not talked about the M word. I'll leave that one alone. That's his own private business. He has a door to his room, and I knock before I go in. But, I mean, come on. I'm not going to inform him about masturbation. That kind of crosses the line of what a mom should do, don't you think?
Yeah, but
But I think the misconception is right is that if we don't talk about it, if we don't expose them to it, then they won't know anything about it and they won't delve into it. But I think
Well,
Kendra brought up a good point
I
that
don't
that's a
think that
misconception.
I don't think that educating a child and giving them the correct information will lead to any earlier sexual activity. If anything, I think giving them the correct information about what is really happening in the world will probably scare the hell out of them. They might never have sex. You need to tell them about STDs. You need to tell them about AIDS epidemic. You need to tell them about teen pregnancy and the whole gamut. And I have had those very frank conversations with my son. He's now 13. And when he needs condoms, I will buy them for him.
Yep.
at 13, you should have been my mom. I grew up in a Christian household where, condoms, they were an abomination from God. I heard the whole story about spilling your seeds on the stone and all the rest of these things. And so, but luckily, I've sort of I don't know, been able to experiment without the consequences or any of the big mishaps of the STDs or any of those things. But I think it's incumbent on my generation to really learn from the misfalls of what the generation before us taught us, from what our parents taught us. If I never used to be this mischievous kid who would duck school from time to time and go do someplace where I wasn't supposed to be, then maybe I would be that underexposed, gullible person who is sort of taken advantage of by any and every female who willing to sleep with me because they feel like they could get away with something, you know?
Yeah, we have one last question. We're going to try it up. The question was, does it really matter if being gay is a choice or not? I say human beings were born really, it's a personal preference. So if today I want to be with a woman, if tomorrow I want to be with a man, I mean, what's the issue with why is it so large that we have to choose a particular preference? Leon, I don't know
I
if you could respond.
I really don't think it does matter whether it's a preference or an inbound concept or whatever it is. Like and this I get back to my point again about us simplifying these answers. I'm heterosexual, but I have a preference of a certain type of woman, if you will, that I'm more attracted to. I prefer the more dark skin, more natural looking woman as opposed to the lighter skin, well made up type of woman. That's my personal preference. So if someone's personal preference is a man as opposed to a woman, then that's the same. I look at it as being the same way as my personal preference to a darker skin more than a lighter skin. Yeah, that's sort of dumbing it down and simplifying it, but at the same time, I feel like it's, as far as the importance of whether it's a preference or you're born this way type of question, to me, I really don't care if you were born gay and that's how you feel like expressing yourself. Fine, I'm cool with that. If you decided one day, or maybe you went out partying and you got drunk one day and you had a homosexual experience, and the next morning you woke up feeling like, hey, I feel better having this homosexual experience than I feel having this being in a heterosexual experience, then that's fine with me too. It personally all boils down to preference as far as I'm concerned, whether you're born with it or it doesn't matter to me, I really don't care.
Well,
As a
that's
free
great,
Leon,
Barrington. That's great that it doesn't matter to you, but it matters to a lot of people. And what that boils down to for someone like myself is the law doesn't look at me the same way as it looks at a heterosexual person. Let me give you a little more, expound on that a little more. My partner doesn't have status and may never have status in this country because we don't have equality in the eyes of the law. I can't marry her, so she's a tourist. So it does matter. It matters that as a human in my own country, I'm a second-class citizen. That's
Yeah.
that's not something I chose, and it's not the same as someone saying, "Oh, they want to be gay." That's just like someone deciding to be married or be a junglist. It's not the same thing.
I get where you coming from, and I empathize, I sympathize with your plight. But I think if the same people who have a problem with you getting married would look at it from my personal perspective as it doesn't matter whether you decide you want to be gay or you decide or you were born with this inbound concept or it was some chemical situation within your biological makeup, what I don't fucking understand anyway because I'm not a biologist, but it's simply your personal right as a human being to make a choice. And if your choice is to be a gay or a lesbian, then that's your choice, which doesn't impede on any of my rights and or my choices. Then I mean it should just, be as simple as, hey, Liana wants to marry Mary, then go right ahead, go marry Mary. That's your business. I hope you and Mary be happy. But if you're not happy, then you get a divorce like the heterosexuals do, and maybe try it over with Cindy. I don't know.
I won't hold my breath for the law to change in this country on that point.
And it's because the law chooses to be ignorant to certain points. You know, some heterosexuals choose to be married but still want to be promiscuous at the same time. Is that worse than a person who chooses to be homosexual? Um, yeah, it might not be what the Christian doctrine says. Well, at least what they say the Christian doctrine says we should be, but that's a whole other bunch of ignorance what I can't get into because the Christian doctrine said we should be free to do whatever the fuck we want to do.
But do you think that, because that's another level of hypocrisy, right? If you read the Bible, the Old Testament is full of polygamy.
Yeah,
Okay.
So,
and there's still a lot of cultures that practice polygamy. So this very notion that marriage is solely between a man and a woman. Oh, do you want to say anything, Leanne?
No, I agree that the Bible's full of hypocrisy. I agree with you there.
Yeah, so there's this notion that we should stick to traditional marriage between a man and a woman is ridiculous, and I don't know how we can make the argument, the firm argument that look, this isn't how we've operated for most of human history, and even marriage between a man and a woman was really based on, it was a business arrangement. Somebody, you needed more property or more wealth or status or just to secure your daughter's future. Like, it wasn't based on choice and love, as it is now. Well, for most heterosexuals, like people, I hope you choose the person that you want to marry. You're not marrying because you have to, because if you don't get married, you won't have a future, you won't have, a roof over your head, especially for women. If you didn't get married, you didn't have somebody to take care of you for the rest of your life. So the definition of marriage has been fluid, and I think what we'll see is, for societies that are more socialist, people won't feel the need to get married because, if your society is taking care of performing all the functions that maybe having a spouse would have done, it takes that pressure off of people to marry, and you won't need that extra support system because, it's already there for any citizen. Yeah, so that's, I think, marriage as we know it is probably, is in decline in some cases, but it's been very fluid. It's meant different things at different times, and it will continue to do so.
Yeah, thanks. I think we've been running now for a bit, so I know Leon has to leave, so we're gonna probably just wrap up the entire session. But I would just like some final words from each of our panelists, all three of you, if just for our listening audience, just leave them with something as it relates to human sexuality, maybe which you'd like to see in the future, the direction you'd like to see the country or society go in. Leon, we can start with you, please.
Well, I'd like to see the Bahamas just become equal for everybody, for all of our citizens. I shouldn't be a second-class citizen in my own country. And people have told me before, oh, well, just carry your gay ass somewhere else. Go to Canada. I don't want to go to Canada. This is my home. And I should not have to be at the back of the bus.
Here. I think I would just say in closing. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I feel, I see where you're coming from, Leanne, and I mean, it's really a sad situation, really, for what you're experiencing, but I think you're really getting the brunt of what generally Bahamians look at as you know, in sexuality has become such a topic of such a judgmental type topic in Bahamian society that, you know, even heterosexuals really feel are starting to feel ostracized in some of the things that they're doing, because we're now coming to this place of understanding of really not only our sexuality but our freedoms generally to decide what we want to do and to not be judged by it. You know, like if a female for instance is all right with her husband having a concubine, as it used to be called in the Bible. I don't know where we come up with this sweetheart thing, but you know, if a female is all right with that, why should she be judged as being ignorant or stupid because she's okay with that when really what goes on in her marriage and her household has nothing to do with you personally, you know. And you know, I could go on and tell you why these type of judgments really um, are causing so much havoc within our society. But I really feel in the end we need to be more open about our human sexuality and really understand how diverse it is from person to person. You know, me being honest, I see myself really as a sexual deviant because I'm a mischievous person by nature. But at the same time, I wouldn't describe myself as particularly a promiscuous person because I really don't do what, in my judgment, a promiscuous person does. Society generally would find that as a contradiction, right, Kendra? But at the same it's if you open and you really you try to be understanding of how everybody is diverse in their own feelings, not only with sexuality but anything that happens, then we would be more accepting about what happens.
Thank you, Barrington. Kendra.
Yeah, I think I just wish we could all sort of be more open about who we are. Um, and your sexuality is just one part of who you are, but I think for those of us who probably don't express what's considered, the normal, what's normal sexually, to just sort of, if you're in a space where you can be more open and free about it, do that, because people need to be aware that there's a spectrum. Like, there are people who are into all sorts of things, and once you're doing those things with consenting adults, then we have no problems. That's, yeah, just be open, love yourself before you love other people.
Thank you so much, Kendra, and Leanne, Barrington. Thank you so much for your contribution, your participation, and it's conversations like this that I believe that will start to change the direction country goes in with its sexuality, whether it's on social, personal work environments, out in the pub, the courage to speak up and speak out. And for all of our audience, there's going to be some much more we're going to hit. This is a huge one. I don't know if we tired, but we may some people may be lacking and yet that a future topic. But Ken, thank you so much, and I hope everyone enjoyed Bahamas Freethinkers' second series of our Google Hangouts. It was great. Sexuality, nature, or society. I don't know if we necessarily answered that question, but thank you so much for the conversation, guys.
Great. Good night.
Good night.
Well, it's my pleasure. I will go back to my regular scheduled programming right about now. But thank you guys for the invite. It was my pleasure, and thank you guys for your honesty. I think I have a new Facebook crush in Kendra now that I
All
heard
right.
about all those other things. But it's my cyber crush. What the hell? Safe sex.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.